Good morning, everyone. So what we're gonna do in this lecture, I'm gonna explain to you this example we've been working on, which it's a little bit complicated, but you need to understand the pieces of it. So this example talks about how do you host data on a server, and how we download it into an app, and how we display it in like a table view controller. And the way we're doing it, we have a server that houses using PHP MyAdmin, and we use the PHP. And the data that we produce is it's in JSON format, and the application, the app what we're using is in iOS. Okay, so to make it easy, I'll put this link on the YouTube channel so you download it. So the project, you can download the project from this link here, GitHub, RedC1113, and that's so you can download this. And the way you don't download it, you just go in here and download this. And it has the project itself, and it has the PHP page. Okay, so that's what we'll be talking about. And the first part, the first video, I will talk about the server side, okay, the database and the PHP page. So let's go ahead and get started. We've been using this web host site, and we have 00 web host site, and we have after you create a website, you can manage your files and you manage your database. So you click on your manage database, and in manage database, I had two databases. And these are important because these are your database. This one here, this database, the database name, the username, and the server are important. And then you need to know the password. These are important to do what? To actually do your connection, connect to the database. If you forgot the database, you can click on here and change database, and then that would work too. All right, so you change it to something that you would remember. So I'm going to click on manage database using PHP MyAdmin. Now in the database, we've created a table. In this is my database. We've created a table called stores. This store has, if you look at the structure of this store, has fields in it. If you look at the structure, here are my fields. So these names are important. The field names are important because these are your JSON attribute when you download them to the server from the server. So I got store ID, store name, latitude, longitude, and store image name. All right, and these are the different types. All right, so that is how you set your database. Now, ideally, you run a query to download data from a table. So what we have next is that we actually have in the file manager, we have actually in the file manager, we have a page that queries this database and produce the JSON data. And you can click on this to download the file manager. To open the file manager, and I'll show you in a minute. So in this file manager, we have the list of all the pages that we uploaded. And one of them is that PHP page. I'm going to execute it, and then I'll show you, I'll explain what it means. So in here, when you right click on this, there's something called view. You view it, here is my data from that table that we were looking at. Now notice, you need to understand the structure of this data because when you're programming, you need to understand what are you receiving. This is the link that you need to include in your app. These are, I have an attribute called stores. This is an object. Here's the beginning and the ending of that object. Inside that object, I have one attribute called stores, and the value for that object is the whole entire thing here. It's an array. An array of what? An array of objects. So I have one object here, JSON object, and another JSON object here. All right? And both objects have attributes, same attributes. Attribute, property, attribute, and its value. Attribute and its value. So I have store ID 1, store name. Where did this come from? These are the same exact field names that you did when you created the table. All right? So that's an overview what we're gonna do on the server side. Now let's take a look at the code. Now, if you look at that file that you have on the GitHub, here's your GitHub, and then there is a file that I included in there. It's called store listing.1.php. If you click on it, you can view it here. You'll see that here's your PHP code. Now, you can just copy this or download the file, and then you'll have a working example. Now, the PHP has no HTML in this case. It's a script, but has no HTML. It's a programming language, but no HTML. Why? Because you're producing JSON data. If you include HTML data in it, then it will cause us a problem when you're trying to validate that JSON data. So what do we have in here in this PHP file? We have the local host. This stays the same. That's your server name. This is the database name. This is your ID. The ID that you got where? You got from when we did the database manager, if we watch, not the ID for your website, not the one that you use for the website, it's actually the ID for the database. So this is it, okay? So this is what I include. Now, the other thing that I have is that I have your database. Of course, this is a dummy database, but you can include put your own database. All right. The next thing you do in the PHP, typically you do this in any type of database activity. You have a connection, you establish a connection. That's the first thing you do. And then you check, do I have actually a valid connection or not? If I have a valid connection, here's what I do. I connect, and if there is no, this is my connection. If there's an error, I print it out. If there's no error, I continue here. What do? I create a query string. The query string is over the table that we've received. Now, that we've created, so it says select star from stores. That was the name of the table that we've created. So this will give you all the fields in that table, all the fields. Now, if you want subset of the fields, or if you want also, you're looking for a particular record, then this can be expanded. This query can be expanded. You can pass parameter into this PHP page, and then you can put where clause, or you can put, for example, certain fields that you wanted to select, all right? So what happens after this string is constructed? What do? You actually run it. How do you run it? You run it using this class here. It says MySQL query, run this SQL statement against the connection that I created earlier. And what do you get? You get a result if everything is successful. You might not get anything because it could have been, your SQL statement could be a problem. So what do? If I got a result, I will construct an empty array to put the data in it. In here, I loop through the result, through all the records. Every time I fetch my object, every time I find a record, I store it in R, and I add it where? I add it to the array. So by the time I get out, the array will contain all the records that were part of that result set, the result, all right? Now, when I'm done constructing this array, what do? I need to actually give it an attribute, and this attribute is called stores. The same stores that you saw in here. That is that stores that you saw in here. Okay, so that is the attribute name. This is a key because this is the attribute that we will be looking for. All right, and then what happens next? You do what? You actually do convert it to, you print it as JSON data. So when you say print encode, you print it as JSON data. All right? So that is, you close your connection. That is all on the server side to create a web service and produce it in a JSON format. All right? Is that clear? So we're going to stop on this video, and then let's do the other video. The other video.